And anybody who rises up against that role, who seeks to change that situation inside of Haiti, gets killed, sometimes by the American government. They get corralled and taken out of there, overthrown, sometimes by the American government. The last one, twice it happened, Aristide, right? The Americans organized for him not to be there. Why? Because he was leading a movement, not particularly revolutionary, that said Haiti must change. That said Haiti must change. So we say, and as this movement internationalizes itself, as you help to internationalize it, I hope that everybody in this room will join Haiti First, Haiti Now, reparations. But there's a second demand, more directly relevant to here, which is that one of those 150 plus interventions that the government of this country made was into Haiti. And indeed, that was not the only one that it made. It has made several interventions recently, including one after the earthquake, when the US government managed, instead of sending in humanitarian help, to send in 20,000 troops. But let us leave that aside. And let us remember that in 1915, the US government, on the grounds that Haiti was destabilized, put in troops, in other words, invaded and occupied. We need to know that the first thing the government of the US did was to pick up the gold that was in the Haitian treasury and place it in a bank in New York. That is the first thing that they did, by way of bringing stability to Haiti. And they did other equally odd things, like setting up a racist regime there, like ensuring that American multinationals could own the best land in Haiti, and so on. In other words, entirely in the interest of US capital and entirely against the interest of ordinary Haitians, who actually fought them. They had a liberation struggle. More than 2,000 Haitians died in that struggle. It was unsuccessful. The Americans eventually left. We say that the American government must follow Italy in the example Italy recently set, where a country, Italy, that had invaded and abused Libya at about the same time in the 20th century, has recently agreed, for whatever reason, to give Libya reparations. And if Italy is doing that in relation to Libya, why not the United States? It's, of course, much more money. Why not the United States in relation to Haiti? So, that's the second demand. The US to give Haiti reparations for the illegal and immoral occupation which benefited only US capital and no Haitians, certainly no Haitian at the bottom of Haitian society. Let me move to the main business of the evening, which is the international perspectives on terrorism, police, state terrorism, and the death penalty. Let me say that in that connection, what I have to say directly about Mumia Abu-Jamal is small. What I have to say about Mumia Abu-Jamal is that Mumia Abu-Jamal must live. 1. 2, must live not under the threat of death, but free. So Mumia Abu-Jamal must be free, and that the many other political prisoners, some of them unrecognizable as political prisoners, but actually political prisoners in this country, as well as the thousands, literally, who are on death row, need to have all of those sentences commuted, and the whole matter needs to be re-examined. The death penalty has no justification. There are places in the world, no, as the Jamaicans say, pia, fool places, but big countries in Western Europe abolished the death penalty a long time ago. They haven't fallen into decay. They don't have more crime than the USA. They don't have more murders than the USA. Right? So no disorder and disaster followed as a result of them abolishing the death penalty. So why is it that a country that proudly talks about its Greco-Roman heritage and talks about its place in the European civilizational scheme of things is so obsessed with the death penalty? Why is it? Why is it that the majority of your states are happily, and sometimes it sounds like happily is the right word, pursuing this brutal policy? How is it that a country so committed more than 200 years ago, at least on the surface, to human rights, cannot see that the death penalty violates the most important of all our human rights, the right to life? That is the argument against the death penalty, in addition to the fact that where you have a racist state of affairs, as you do here, as you do in Jamaica, innocent Africans will overwhelmingly be those who get burned. Right? So there's a race issue around the death penalty. And we Africans have a vested interest, more than anybody else, because of the racist state of things, in fighting the death penalty. So don't bother with the fact that this or that black person did do this or that to my brother or sister or husband or mother. Nothing is to be gained by agreeing that the state must murder the person who did it. Nothing will be gained by you, and nothing will be gained by anybody else. We are against the death penalty. All Africans in the UK, in the US must be against the death penalty. All civilized people worldwide must be against the death penalty. It is not Abu Jamal, Mumia Abu Jamal, who deserves to die. It is the system that has him in chains. That is the structure that needs to be interred, buried, if you will, as soon as possible. Now, imperialism, my brothers and sisters, does its business, at least on the surface, in different ways in different places. So in one place, no death penalty. In another place, death penalty, and so on. The three places that are of immediate relevance tonight are the UK, the US, and Jamaica. What are the differences on the surface? Death penalty, most places in the USA. No death penalty in England, UK, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, to give it its full name, and no death penalties in France or Germany, etc. And then in Jamaica, death penalty. Jamaica has this difference. The death penalty is on the statute book. That is to say, the law is in place. Nobody has been executed in Jamaica for the longest while, unless they slipped in an execution while I wasn't looking in the last year. Right? So nobody has been executed there for quite a while. Even though the death penalty is on the statute book, and most of the manor on them in the House of Parliament are hangers, right? They want people hanged. The people who are on death row in Jamaica. The legislators want them hanged. Why has none of them been hanged? Important that we understand this. Jamaica is a neo-colony. Britain left the death penalty in place in Jamaica. Our neo-colonial masters and leaders locally didn't see fit to abolish it. As I just told you, they are hangers themselves. One of the continuing relationships between Jamaica and the UK, Britain, is that we have an appeals process that goes right from the lowest court in Jamaica on the criminal side up to a body called the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council inside of the UK Parliament, the House of Lords. Very arcane. But because it's there, one, and two, because the processes in Jamaica are inefficient and also racist It's mainly black people in Jamaica, 90-odd% of us are black people, Africans. But that doesn't mean that it's not a site of racism. Whites and browns with white and brown values dominate the place same way, right? Just like us, right? Excepting that there's many more whites here than there. So, in Jamaica, the black people who are convicted of the crime of murder or certain forms of it have a right of appeal to the Privy Council. And the inefficiency of the judicial system means that it takes years and years and years for the appeals processes to be got through. And at least 2 of those who were subject to that process added a dimension to their appeal which said, the length of time that we have been held on death row is itself a cruel and unusual punishment. Let me repeat. The length of time that we have spent going through this appeals process whilst being on death row is itself a cruel and unusual punishment. Yes. And the judicial committee of the Privy Council over in England says, yes, we agree with you. And so all of these people in Jamaica who have been found guilty of murder and who are involved in that process, all of whose appeals take an inordinately long time, are subject to cruel and unusual punishment and therefore forbidden from having the death penalty carried out because prior to that they have been subject to this cruel and unusual punishment, and the Privy Council has said you cannot add to that by hanging them. So they are some of them have already been released and others will be. That is the conundrum in which the Jamaican government finds itself because of that continuing link to the Privy Council. One of the questions arises is if the Privy Council in England can see that holding people on death row through an appeals process in a legal system that is both unfair and systematically racist. I'm talking about the US system now. How is it that if the British top court can see that in relation to Jamaica, the US Supreme Court cannot see exactly the same thing in relation to the US? Something wrong. And what is wrong is the nature of appointments to the Supreme Court. What is wrong is that yours and my brother, Clarence, whatever his name is part of a majority appointed by one right-wing president after another, who are using entirely right-wing, non-humanitarian, non-Christian values in order to maintain a death penalty, which in addition to being objectively wicked, is carried out in some extraordinarily wicked ways in this country. So, we are against the death penalty, and we say again, all of the bodies with which I am connected either directly or even vaguely oppose the death penalty, and I know that everybody in this room is with us. Now, let me deal with the ways in which, despite the dissimilarities of situation, death penalty here, or at least some places here, some states here, no death penalty in the UK, and death penalty in Jamaica, but non-implementation for the reasons I just made. So on the surface, that is the difference. And it's not just a surface difference. Some of it matters. It matters to the people whose necks have not been broken in Jamaica, that the Privy Council has stopped them from being hanged, which is the method of execution there. Now, beneath the surface, what do we see? We see that police brutality, extrajudicial murder, is the order of the day in all 3 of these very different polities, political places, social systems, call it what you will.